We need to have a serious conversation about the romance genre and what it needs to start normalizing. And I'm going to be blunt. I am a massive fan of romance stories. I love romance within live action. I love it in TV shows. I love it in anime. I love it in manga. I love it in light novels. I love it in games. You get the point. I love romance. And I think one of the big driving factors of why I love the genre so much is actually where it all begins with Clannad many years ago. And then series that followed like Toradora to Vampire Knight to Real Life to Dangers in My Heart, Nagatoro, Uzaki-chan, and also, obviously, My Dress-Up Darling. I'm a big fan of the romance genre. I love all sorts of different themes and stories within this genre. There's a lot of subcategories. There's a lot of things that try to stand out. But overall, there is one thing in particular that I notice not a lot of romance stories do in the first place. And I think it's one of the areas I feel like needs to be normalized more going forward. And obviously, I don't think that we should get rid of the old school stuff, but I think that I would like to see more content, focused on what I'm about to talk about, and that is actually seeing the story progress after the main couple gets together. If you don't know what I'm talking about, typically in romance stories, you have the main couple either confess their feelings, they go on a date together, they decide to become boyfriend-girlfriend, and then the series more or less wraps itself up in about 4 or 5 chapters or a few episodes of the anime. And it's great. I mean, technically the objective of the story was romance and seeing the characters get together, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is the end. That is the end of the characters' story, because obviously there is a life after becoming boyfriend-girlfriend or husband and wife. You have the living situation, how they go about their day-to-day situation of, managing job and household activities, and even raising a family. There is a lot of potential within these type of storylines that I feel like a lot of manga, a lot of webtoons and stuff just don't really tap into. And I really am upset about that because it's just such a wasted opportunity. But when we get series, for instance, like Clannad, or we get stuff like Uzaki-chan here, that's when things start to really stand out. You're like, holy crap, this is incredible, because you see the characters that confess their feelings for each other, and then the story continues to progress long after that. I really think that we need to see a normalization of this type of themes within stories, where you have the characters confess their feelings, and then we see them go for a wedding ceremony, we see them try to normalize each other when they, live together and all that, how they go about doing jobs or raising kids and stuff. I would love to see more stories like this, and I do hope with the overwhelming success and popularity of anime as of late, and how, a lot of romance series have been getting very popular too, like for instance, My Dress-Up Darling, or Uzaki-chan, for instance. I hope that this leads to a revolution, or, a boom to the romance genre, to where we actually see more stuff like this, where we see, a continuation of the characters' life. Because think about this, okay? There is so much possibility for, a story to have, let's say, the example here, Nagatoro, okay? You can have a standard romance story of Nagatoro, and basically seeing the characters doing their typical antics, the school life and everything, just the typical romance. But then the series kind of comes to the ending part to where they confess their feelings for each other, and then it wraps up. But then a part 2 can come out, and it continues the story into their adult life. Now, there is a few series that have actually done this. Takagi is a very good example of that, but I would like to see more, because it's just it's very clear there is a market for romance. People love romance stories. People want to buy them. People want to read them. People want to know how the characters are going to interact and all that. So it's I never understood why a lot of stories just don't continue it further when there's just so much profitability from continuing that. But anyways, with that being said, this is a perfect segue to talk about a series I discovered lately in the romance categories when it comes to webtoons. And I was, looking around, looking at many different series. A lot of things stood out to me. I mean, I love X Love Review. I've talked about, obviously, Tears on a Withered Flower, different things like that. There's quite a few series. But this series right here is the one I managed to find literally the other day. I sat down, I read it, and I was like, you know what? This is cute. This is really cute. This is enjoyable. It's set in a workplace lifestyle. It's not set in a high school, middle school life setting. It's set in, a setting to where they're adults and they're working day-to-day jobs and trying to figure out if, there is some form of mutual bond or connection between the two. It's a very wholesome romance, and I want to really recommend this series because, obviously, as I've been talking about, I love romance stories. And I was reading Ctrl+Alt+Resign, which that is, that's the name of this series, by the way. Very unique name. When I first saw this name, I was like, wow, that's kind of weird. That's a different name for a romance. But then when I sat down and I read the chapters, as you can see, there's only 4 chapters right now, I then realized why it's called that. First of all, this series is about our main male character here, Max, and our main female character, Joy. These 2 characters in particular are co-workers at their job, and they pretty much more or less are coders. They, do coding and stuff at their job, which references the title, Ctrl+Alt+Delete and stuff like that, different buttons you would press on your keyboard while you're doing different coding and all that type of stuff. But the point of the matter is that Max is someone that is very isolated. He keeps to himself, he's very reserved, and as soon as he gets off of work, he goes instantly to play video games or just chill and do his own thing. While Joy, as our main female character, she is someone that is mysterious. She's someone that keeps to herself. She is someone that, more or less, she is a mystery. She seems to be this bright, happy star within the co-worker life, but there's just something about her that, you just are uncertain about. And throughout these chapters, and there is even more chapters actually after 4 chapters if you read it on mobile, by the way, but after these chapters, you realize that Joy, there's definitely something off with her. She clearly has something to hide. And instantly what we see here in, chapter 4, when they have a meetup, they're talking with each other and all that, you have it to where she's like, oh, we should work together, and I know if we work together, you're not going to be one of those people that have, an ulterior motive to profess their love to me. And it's a very interesting combo, because obviously the way Joy comes off to our main male character, Max, is that she clearly might be flirting with him to some degree. She has some form of feelings there, but she's not being honest. But she doesn't want him to chase after her. And it's really interesting, the dynamic between the 2 characters. But obviously, Joy acts very different, and she really is relying on Max in the situation at the workplace, and she's trying to find a new job. And obviously, he's someone that is basically been working his job. He doesn't really have any aspirations to really move forward. He does want to move forward, but he's just been stuck at his job. So she kind of convinces him to basically go job hunting, for these 2 can, look into what they want to do in the future. So she wants to work for a private company, a company that probably will allow her to move up a lot more effectively, instead of being at a dead-end company, working basically, 9 to 5 every single day, or maybe overtime, and unthanked overtime at that. And she just wants more business opportunity. And so the way the conversation goes between these 2 characters, and the way she mentions that, it implies that either A, she's constructing a company that is going to be a private company, like has secrets behind the scenes that she's keeping to herself, or she has an offer to go to a private company, and she's scouting Max here, our main male character, if he wants to go. And I feel like you need to give some more context here, since I was talking about normalization and everything at the beginning of the video. The reason why that's very relevant to this situation is because, obviously, when you have a story that's set in, the workplace, or a story that's set after school, there is more opportunities for the story romance genre, so to speak, to explore aspects and areas that is not normally explored. That's what makes, for instance, Uzaki-chan here so unique, is because it's set in college, and I really like that. It allows different themes that you don't normally get to see within the romance setting. Now, I'm not saying I don't like, for instance, Dangers in My Heart, or Nagatoro, or anything. Very good stories, some of my favorites of all time. But I am glad to see that there is more branching out as of late. And I feel like the series here that I'm talking about, for instance, Ctrl+Alt+Resign, is a story that feels more or less trying to be a little bit different than the typical romance. The cliches or the genericness is there. I'm not going to act like it isn't, but it does feel like it's trying to be different, and I do like the main female lead. Obviously, she's very cute looking. I like the outfit and all that. I like the way, the interactions are between the 2 characters. They're polar opposites. For instance, she's Joy, literally, bright shining lights, very super happy, and then you have our main male character that's all depresso, basically, just very upset, or someone that just looks like very loner type like. I don't know, I like the dynamic between the 2 characters. But anyways, back into the main point though, obviously, where the story is going, it's building up to a workplace romance, which I think is a really good subcategory to romance stories in general. I love that type of stuff, within anime or manga, and the reason for that is because the dynamic can be complicated. When you're doing a job or a business and you're surrounded by fellow coworkers that, more or less need to get certain things done, or they have deadlines or whatever, and then you have someone that's in a lovey-dovey relationship with someone else in the workplace, it could cause drama. It could cause tension within the workplace, especially if that individual that may be in a relationship with someone in the workplace has another person that they may have been dating in the past also in the said workplace. It could cause a lot of issues, a lot of friction with getting work done, and it can lead to things that, honestly, does happen in real life. That type of situation does happen. And there's been many, like, different stories, the series, even this series brings it up, that sometimes if you're in the workplace, you should not date people in the workplace because there could be a conflict of interest or just overall drama that can be very bad. Because let's say the relationship just goes sideways, then obviously you're still going to have to work with the person that you were dating, that you're now as your ex, but obviously the interaction between the two is probably going to be extremely toxic. So yeah, I mean, I like this type of stuff. It leads to some organic drama, melodrama, and progression as well with the characters. But yeah, I wanted to recommend this series. I recently discovered, for instance, Ctrl+Alt+Resign. I wanted to shout this series out along with talking about an aspect that's really important to me when it comes to the romance category. But tell me your thoughts. What do you think that romance should, normalize? Do you think that Clannad, for instance, like more stories like Clannad should be, normalized, or should we just keep it like it always has been? Which I do think, yes, in general, anime manga should stay as it has been. Like, we should still always have stories like Nagatoro and stuff, but I would like to see more exploration beyond just that. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Legitimately curious. But I love you guys. You be safe, stay healthy. If you are interested in the series that I was recommending today, a link is in the description. But be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.